Do. Welcome to another painting exercise tutorial demo with me, Maxim Grunin at Maxim Grunin Art. I would like to bring some attention on study of painting from still life, just objects positioned, not too many things to put together, and let's just look at how simple objects, how shadow and light and midtone, how all of these kind of technical, kind of trivial, basic, skill-based elements, how do they play out? So this is a painting of a still life with apples. It's a study and it's in color and it's on canvas with acrylics. So first steps that I'm taking, I have a strategy and I learned how to use the strategy in school, and I solidified my knowledge with lots of personal experience and years of working. So here we go. First step is I select a canvas and then I paint it with a neutral, darker, lighter, something neutral, like a underpainting, like a neutral ground. Think about a cave wall. It's not pure white, it's not like pristine and shiny and scary. It's just so I am setting up a rough neutral surface, and I have a kind of a gray, green, brown kind of and it's painted over another study, so like repurpose a canvas. So find placement for the composition, for compose the objects within the rectangle, and I did that with a lighter color, so it could be visible on a darker ground. And if the ground was lighter, I might have used the opposite, like a black. So it almost doesn't matter, and it's nice to experiment with different underpainting, with different color ground. I like to experiment with different color ground, and it's kind of sets the stage for messing the canvas up a bit more. So we started, and once all of the objects are placed, I have a picture that I've taken with apples and a piece of cloth, like a dish cloth that to wipe dishes, to dry dishes, and took a photograph and cropped it and contrasted it, and I kind of liked, I chose one object to be in the front, a couple objects in the back. The cloth is to just diversify the painting, just an element. So the focus is on the apples, and once everything is drawn in, then the blocking in is started, and mixing variety of shades of the same color. Let's say if the dishcloth is let's say it's white, but if I painted it white, it would look flat and too light. But the truth is that if we look at anything around, and if we look for pure white, it's almost never found, except sometimes in really bright, shiny highlight areas. Take a look around, and the white wall or the white piece of paper, is it really white or is it in the shadow and it's a type of gray? And so if it is a type of gray, which it is, it's a colorful gray, there would be like a handful of variations, maybe gray green, gray purple, gray brown, and just execute, work a little bit on that cloth, and there it is, and then move into the other objects to create contrast. So if there is a little bit of darker background and a little bit of lighter cloth, and then the apples could be again like bright and darker and a different color than the other objects, so they all support each other. These surfaces, they have color and light and dark contrast, and everything is coming in like briefly and not detailed. And so once things are blocked in, then it's possible to refine them a little bit, and it's possible to paint from the outside of the objects by like mixing a darker green, brown that's in the background and just trimming the red apples, or reshaping them slightly from the outside. So it's cutting from the outside towards the object, and at the same time, simultaneously, it's possible to work from the inside of the object and cut back the background or anything else. So things are really movable, and really the process is really flexible and dynamic. There is really, yes, being careful is helpful, but it's also possible to add and take away quite easily. So, developing a variety of colors by mixing. So, do a little bit of painting and do mixing again. Wash the brush in between changing of the colors. So, if I added black to some of the red to make these darker shadow areas or elsewhere, then it's better to wash the brush out before I go to saturate it and the bright and colorful mid-tone and light reds, because the black is going to mix in with the bright color, and it will produce some muddier, like more muddy version of it, grayed out. So rinse and wipe the brush and navigate carefully between the mixtures, but do mix a lot. And application of brush strokes. So the brush strokes are placed on the angles to describe the form of the object. So it's like you think it's as if we're sculpting these spheres or free forms that are round, like the apples or the folds of the cloth. We are sculpting them with directional, on an angle that's descriptive of the plane on which the turn is going. So it's really helpful to think about the objects in a three-dimensional sense and describe them with brush strokes. So create contrast between all of the areas, and that contrast supports each and every adjacent area. Later, at the back of the video, get into the objects with more definition. This is time to really bite in and increase the amount of detail and contrast and color information within the shadow, within the midtone, within the light area. Use observation to give each object as much depth and sensitive attentiveness. Be sensitive, be attentive to what you are looking at. Maybe don't make up too much and look for clues in the reference. And then try to mix how light or how dark the information that you're finding, that you're seeing, and give it the color that it needs, and then try to place the brush stroke and then leave it like that and take a look. Maybe it works, you know. And so we're working from general information towards particular and more detailed information. We are working from darker and more general patches of color towards lighter and way more particular and finer elements. I am setting everything up so that I can work on highlights and the stems of the apples being details, and you know, even so I would wash the brush. I would very carefully mix a tiny bit of yellow with the white, so that the white is not pure white. It's got a bit of a warmth in it. Usually there's almost no pure white in nature. And then place it, you know, again, observation, and carefully craft these highlight areas and craft these apple stems, little tails into the scene. The details come in over top of whatever is placed. They don't need to be there before that. It's gonna be, you know, a pain in the butt to just keep like an accurate detail throughout the whole painting time. There's no need for that. It could be placed over top at the end. It's a lot more efficient. And attend once again, just like take a look at what you've produced. Let's take a look at what I've painted. Maybe the highlights with the closer scrutiny, under closer scrutiny, there is they're a little sudden and a little abrupt along the edges. They're like sitting too much on top of the paint, the highlights. So I go back and I craft a little transition with a halftone, soften some of the areas. Maybe I go around and take a look at, you know, what else could be touched up. Maybe I bring in like a lighter background element with a palette knife to create more depth within the space that I'm painting. And I'm going to leave the painting to sit in my studio, and I will take a look at it a couple of times throughout the next couple of days, and I might go back into it and like refine it a bit more. Even now I am starting to think, oh, maybe the cloth, the tablecloth, could be a little more done, a little more meaty and three-dimensional. You know, I barely touched on it. So this is an exercise in painting. We're using simple still life, simple objects. Paint what you love. I love looking and drawing and painting apples.